What is the dark night of the soul? The dark night of the soul is not merely a bad day or a rough patch. It's an intense transformational process. Here I'm going to tell you what it's all about, so stay tuned to the end of this message. At some point on the spiritual journey, many seekers encounter a phase known as the dark night of the soul. This term, deeply rooted in the mystic traditions, describes a profound period of emotional, psychological, and spiritual upheaval that occurs on the path to deeper awareness and enlightenment. Emotional turbulence. Imagine you're on a boat in the middle of the ocean, where suddenly a storm hits. The waves are crashing, the wind is howling, and for a moment you're not sure if you'll make it through. This is what emotional turbulence feels like during the dark night of the soul. It's like being tossed around by feelings you can't quite control, emotions that seem to come from the depths of the sea itself. Deep sadness washing over you like a wave, moments of numbing emptiness as if you're floating in a vast, unfathomable void. You might find yourself sitting in your room, surrounded by familiar things, a bookshelf filled with books you love, photos of happy memories, the comforting presence of a pet or a plant you've cared for. And yet, there's this inexplicable feeling of disconnection, as if all these things and beings no longer hold the same meaning. It's as though you're looking at your life through a glass, unable to touch or feel the warmth you know should be there. Then there are moments of fear and anxiety, kind of like when you're watching a suspenseful movie and your heart races in anticipation of something lurking in the shadows. Except in this case, the suspense doesn't resolve. The feeling lingers, colouring your view of the future with uncertainty and dread. Anger and frustration can flare up too, unexpected and intense. Imagine you're trying to open a jar, and no matter how hard you try, the lid just won't budge. That irritation you feel, amplified, can be directed at yourself, at others, or even at the universe for making you feel this lost and disconnected. And then, perhaps the most challenging of all, is the sense of despair and hopelessness, akin to watching the last leaf fall from a tree in winter, leaving you wondering if spring will ever come. It's a moment where all paths seem to lead nowhere, and the light at the end of the tunnel is just too faint to see. Navigating this storm isn't easy. There are no quick fixes or magic spells to calm the sea, but just like any storm, it does pass. The waves eventually calm, the wind eases, and the sky clears, revealing stars that guide you home. This journey through the dark night, through the turbulence of your emotions, is a passage towards a new dawn. It's about finding your light amidst the darkness, learning to sail your ship in any weather, and emerging stronger, more resilient, and with a deeper understanding of yourself and the world around you. So if you find yourself caught in this storm, remember, you're the captain of your ship. Lean into the wind, let yourself feel the rain, and keep your eyes on the stars. The journey through the dark night is tough, but it's also a profound opportunity for growth and transformation. Spiritual disconnection. You know that feeling when you're scrolling through your phone, looking at everyone else's highlights and feeling like you're just not part of it? That's a bit like spiritual disconnection during the dark night of the soul, but on a cosmic level. It's like everyone else got an invite to this grand party of life, and somehow yours got lost in the mail. Imagine you're in your favourite spot in the city, maybe a little cafe or a park bench where you've had countless moments of peace and inspiration. It's the same place, the same ambiance, the familiar smell of coffee or the rustle of leaves. But something's off. You're surrounded by the same scenery that once filled you with warmth and a sense of belonging, yet now it feels as if you're watching it all through a thick pane of glass. The connection has gone missing. Or picture this: you're at a family dinner, surrounded by the people who matter most to you. There's laughter, stories being passed around, and that sense of home that's always anchored you. But this time, you find yourself floating on the outskirts of the conversation, unable to latch onto the joy. It's as if you're tuned to a different frequency, hearing the noise but not the music. This disconnect isn't just about feeling out of place in social settings or personal routines. It dives deeper, touching the spiritual threads that weave through your life. The practices, beliefs, or rituals that once brought solace and a profound sense of connection to something greater than yourself now seem hollow, almost echoey. It's like singing a beloved song and suddenly realizing you can't hear the melody anymore, just your own voice bouncing back at you in an empty room. And in the silence of prayer or meditation, where you once felt a comforting presence, a guiding light, there's a void. It's as if you're calling out into the vastness of space, only to be met with silence. That vibrant thread connecting you to the divine, to the universe, feels frayed, if not completely severed. But here's the thing about spiritual disconnection. It's not the end of your spiritual journey, but a transformational phase of it. Think of it as winter in the garden of your soul. Everything appears frozen, lifeless, buried under snow. Yet beneath the surface there's a profound stirring, a preparation for new growth that requires the cold and the quiet. So, if you're walking through this phase, feeling adrift in a sea of disconnection, remember that even the most barren landscapes can give way to spring. This period of disconnection isn't a punishment, but an invitation to explore the depths of your being, to find new ways to connect that are more aligned with the person you're becoming. And just like reaching out to a friend when you're feeling lost, reaching inward during these times can help bridge the gap between your soul and the source of all connection. You're being rerouted, not abandoned. Hold on to that, and trust the journey. Existential crisis. You know how sometimes you find yourself staring up at the sky, watching the clouds drift by, and suddenly you're hit with this overwhelming question: what's the point of it all? Imagine that feeling, but it's not just a passing cloud of thought. It's more like a thick fog that settles over everything you do, every day. That's what an existential crisis feels like during the dark night of the soul. It's like you're walking through a forest you thought you knew by heart, but suddenly all the paths have disappeared, the trees look unfamiliar, and you're questioning not just where you are, but why you're there in the first place. You might be surrounded by people who love you, doing a job that once made you feel fulfilled, engaging in hobbies that used to bring you joy, but none of it seems to matter anymore. It's as if you've been pulled out of your life and are now looking at it from the outside, trying to find a reason to step back in. You see, during an existential crisis, those big, unanswerable questions about life, purpose, and existence become your constant companions. They're like shadows that follow you around, whispering doubts into everything you once held dear. Why am I here? What's my purpose? Does any of this matter? They turn your world upside down, making you question the very foundations upon which you've built your life. And it's not just about questioning your career path or whether you're in the right relationship. It goes deeper, touching the core of your being. You might look at the same old street you've walked down 1,000 times and suddenly see it through a lens of profound uncertainty and wonder. Or you might hold an object, like a book you've loved since you were a kid, and feel a disconcerting disconnect, as if you and the book exist in entirely different universes now. This crisis can make you feel incredibly alone too, because it's not something you can easily explain to others. Trying to articulate why you're questioning the essence of existence over coffee can make you feel isolated, like you're the only person in the world who can't seem to grasp what makes life meaningful. But here's the thing about walking through this existential fog. It's also where you find new paths. It strips away the superficial layers of your life, forcing you to confront and consider what truly matters to you. It's painful, yes, and incredibly disorienting, but it's also a profound opportunity for growth. It's a chance to rediscover or redefine your values, to align your life with what genuinely feels important and fulfilling. So, if you find yourself in the midst of this existential crisis, know that it's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to question, to doubt, and to feel lost. This is part of your journey through the dark night of the soul, a passage that, while challenging, is leading you toward a deeper understanding of who you are and what your place in this vast, mysterious universe might be. And remember, you're not wandering through this forest alone. There are others out there, feeling just as lost and questioning just as much, and there's beauty in that shared human experience. We're all part of this grand, inexplicable adventure called life, searching for our own unique paths through the woods. So let's keep walking, questioning, and seeking together. Physical symptoms. When we're going through something as intense as the dark night of the soul, It's not just our minds or spirits that feel the weight, our bodies do too. It's like when you're carrying a backpack that's way too heavy. At first, it's just uncomfortable, but the longer you carry it, the more you start to feel actual pain, right? In your shoulders, your back, maybe even getting headaches from the strain. That's similar to how the dark night manifests physically. Imagine you're trying to go about your day, but you've barely slept a wink the night before. Not because you weren't tired, you were exhausted. But as soon as your head hit the pillow, it's like a switch flipped on, and your brain decided it was time to run a marathon. Thoughts racing, heart pounding, and not a wink of sleep in sight. So you're running on fumes, trying to keep it together, but everything feels off. Coffee doesn't help, it just makes you jittery, adding to that sense of being wired but tired. Then there are times when you're just not hungry. Food, even your favourites, just doesn't appeal. It's like when you're sick, and everything tastes bland or off. Except you're not sick, not in the usual way. Your body just seems to be on strike, refusing to take in what it usually needs to thrive. Or the opposite happens. You can't stop eating, trying to fill a void that seems bottomless, with comfort foods that don't really bring comfort. Have you ever noticed how stress and emotions can tie your stomach in knots? It's like that, but on another level. You might find yourself dealing with stomach aches, headaches, or other aches and pains that don't seem to have a clear cause. It's your body's way of ringing the alarm bell saying, "Hey, something's not right here." Or think about how you feel when you're about to give a big presentation or perform in front of an audience. That adrenaline rush, the sweaty palms, the heart racing, it's all part of your body's fight or flight response. Except, during the dark night, it feels like that button is stuck on, leaving you in a constant state of alertness, even when there's no immediate threat. It's exhausting, draining you of energy you didn't even know you had. And you know what's really strange? It can feel incredibly lonely, even though it's something many have gone through. It's like being in a crowded room but feeling invisible, disconnected from everyone else, even though they're just a few feet away. But here's the thing, just like that heavy backpack, you won't have to carry this weight forever. It's part of the journey, a sign that you're moving, growing, even when it feels like you're stuck in place. And just like any physical journey, there are ways to ease the burden. Resting when you need to, reaching out for support, finding small joys and comforts to lighten the load. So if you're feeling these physical symptoms, know that it's okay to slow down, to take care of yourself, to ask for help. It's not just a journey of the spirit or the mind, it's a journey of the body too. And on the other side, there's healing, growth, and a strength you might not have realised you had. It's tough, no doubt about it, but you're not alone, and you're stronger than you think. What it means for the individual. You know when you're going through your closet, finding old clothes that don't fit anymore, or maybe they just don't feel like you anymore. Imagine that feeling, but applied to pretty much everything in your life, your beliefs, your desires, even your understanding of who you are. That's a bit what the dark night of the soul feels like for an individual. It's this intense period of questioning and re-evaluating everything you thought you knew about yourself and the world around you. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, but instead of reflecting your exterior, it reflects everything inside you, your fears, your doubts, your hopes. During the dark night, it's as if this mirror suddenly shows sides of yourself you didn't know existed or parts you've been avoiding. It can be unsettling, like finding a stranger staring back at you. This period can feel a lot like being lost in a forest at night. You thought you were on the right path, but somehow every step seems to take you deeper into uncertainty. The landmarks and signs you used to navigate by no longer make sense. It's not just about feeling lost, it's about realizing that the map you've been using to guide your life needs to be redrawn. For many, this journey through the dark night is also like sitting through the longest, darkest winter you've ever experienced, watching everyone else seemingly enjoying their endless summer. You might see friends getting married, having kids, or celebrating successes, and here you are, feeling like you're in hibernation, undergoing a transformation that's invisible and incomprehensible to others. But here's the thing, just as winter eventually gives way to spring, the dark night of the soul heralds a profound rebirth. It's about shedding those old clothes that no longer fit, looking into that mirror and beginning to recognize the deeper, truer reflection staring back. It's about finding your way out of the forest, not by retracing your steps, but by forging a new path that aligns with your most authentic self. So, if you're feeling like everything you once held onto is falling apart, remember this. It's not a destruction, it's a renovation. You're being called to build something more genuine, more you. And on the other side of this dark night, there's a new dawn waiting, with a version of yourself and a life that feels more real, more aligned, and filled with a deeper sense of purpose and connection. Remember, every great story has its trials, and this, my friend, is just part of your epic. On the other side of this dark night, there's a field waiting for us, untouched, peaceful, and filled with the promise of a new day. And I can't wait to see you run through it, with your heart wide open, ready for whatever comes next. Thank you for being here. If you resonate with this, subscribe, comment, and give a like. Until next time, love, light, and blessings to you.